This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. Stay tuned to find out how you can get Surfshark for 85% off and get 3 extra months for free. Well, aren't you some lucky so-and-sos? Due to a scheduling error on my part, you get a third classic pay-per-view review for the month of August, and this one's a doozy, folks. Keeping with the SummerSlam theme, it's SummerSlam 1992 from August 29th at historic Wembley Stadium in jolly old London, England. This show was nominated by Nicholas Plouffe, William Marshall, and Christopher Picorni over on patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. It is the first and only SummerSlam, and for that matter, any of the Big Four, to take place outside of North America. And this was not by design, though. It was almost not meant to be, because the show was originally supposed to take place essentially the Washington, D.C. area. But then back in May of this year, business was going so poorly in America at the time. Well, at the same time, business in Europe was booming. They were selling out like gangbusters on their European tours, so they figured it was a good opportunity to strike while the iron was hot and move their show to London with about 3 to 4 months notice. But I think we can all agree this was the better move. 80,355 people in Wembley Stadium makes this the 4th largest attended show in WWE history, 250,000 pay-per-view buys, a buy rate of 1.5. The show made more than $2 million in ticket sales. Vince McMahon and King Bobby Heenan are on commentary for the evening. Vince opens up by saying, "The grandeur, the spectacle, the pageantry of SummerSlam." Where have we heard those lines before in recent years? And of course, the big question surrounding the world title match of Warrior and Savage is where will Mr. Perfect end up? We'll get more on that later, but of course, Bobby Heenan has a vested interest in this. He knows Perfect and Ric Flair very well, so he might be able to give us some answers. What does Bobby say? The opening video package has a bunch of excited fans outside Wembley, but it's best known for this little guy.
The British Bulldog's gonna win, whether he wants to or not.
It's such a great line, and I know when you step back you realize this is supposed to be a reference to British Bulldog's promos, because he was kind of busting out that catchphrase at the time, whether you want to or not, but it just does not really apply here. Just a heads up, today I'll be reviewing the network version of SummerSlam 92, which means there will be some matches you will not see here. The US and the UK aired 2 different versions of this show. That means on the network version you will not see Papa Shango versus El Matador, you won't see Tatanka versus the Berserker, and you won't see a 6-man match between the Mountie and the Nasty Boys against Jim Duggan and the Bushwhackers. Sorry, I guess? Your opening match sees Money Incorporated, Ted DiBiase and IRS versus the Legion of Doom. IRS on the mic saying, if you British tax cheats paid your fair share, you wouldn't put as much of a burden on the royal family. Sounds like something you'd hear today still. LOD riding their hogs down the ramp, accompanied by Paul Ellering and Rocco, the ventriloquist dummy that Ellering started carrying around and doing some shtick with. I don't know if I'd rather have a dummy or a dog as a mascot, but at least the ventriloquist dummy wouldn't have the risk of shitting all over the mat. DiBiase, I love he's wearing the clean all whites in the ring tonight. LOD start off hot, but IRS gains control, works over Hawk. Hawk comes back, goes for a dive, but IRS ducks. Hawk eats some shit. Money Inc. do the old tag switcheroo behind the referee's back a couple of times. Hawk gets an opening after driving Ted's face into the corner, but he gets cut off. Hawk's just getting killed in there. Another close call as Hawk fights the corner. Animal with a super hot tag goes wild on Money Inc. IRS is ejected. Doomsday Device attempt is thwarted. IRS is able to dropkick Animal. Look at the height there. DiBiase is knocked into IRS, so he goes off the apron. Animal hits a power slam on Ted and wins. I give it 3 stars out of 5. I love the energy in this opening matchup, and the story they tell is done very well, but it is a very familiar story. It's a very formulaic story, that tag team setup where it's all the fake outs and all the distractions and everything. We've seen it time and time again. They do it very well here, but let's just say I've seen it before. This is actually the last LOD match for several years. I couldn't really tell from watching this match, but it turns out this time Hawk was big into pain pills. He was popping them pretty regularly backstage, to the point where he was almost in no shape to compete with this match here, but he was able to pull through, obviously. And Hawk would actually stick around England for a while. He didn't take the flight back to the States after SummerSlam, hung out with the London chapter of the Hells Angels, allegedly, before quitting the company outright. And so Hawk and Animal would not be teaming together until reuniting in 1996 in WCW. Backstage, Ric Flair's being interviewed, still upset that he's not the one fighting Savage for the championship on this night. Mean Gene's trying to pry and ask, what corner is Mr. Perfect going to be in? Flair's very coy about it, and Gene's getting heated. Tell us, damn it! Flair says that Perfect's in the dressing room of the winner, so there you go. Virgil's interviewed backstage. He's fighting for the honor of his good friend, the Big Boss Man, who was brutalized by Nailz many weeks ago. Virgil says he survived the toughest streets in the world. He can survive Nailz. And Virgil is too legit to quit. And oh my God, folks, I'm so excited for the next match as Virgil takes on Nailz in singles competition. Yes, let the train wreck barrel its way into the station for this one. I will say though, London loves them some Virgil. Great pop for him here. There's chokes. There's more chokes. Virgil is all over the place as he hits his offense. Hits Nailz with a clothesline and a drop kick, which does not phase Nailz. Nailz goes back to the choke. Virgil with a pretty cool roll up here, but it's only for half a second, and back to the choke. It's the only thing Nailz knows how to do. Fighting on the outside, Virgil takes a pummeling there. He gets a flurry of offense, and the crowd's going wild, but the comeback is stopped short. Clamps on his chokehold. Virgil passes out. Nailz wins. I give it a half star out of 5. It was not the glorious train wreck I was expecting going into it, but it wasn't much better than that. Nailz is really good at doing one move. Virgil is like 50 to 60% good at doing 5 moves. So of these two, which would you consider to be the ring general? Hard to say, but I will say this though, I forget that how over Virgil was for a brief period of time, and this is some great proof of that. This would actually be the beginning of the end of Nailz' career in the Federation. In December, he'd finally receive a SummerSlam payout. He was not thrilled with the number. He famously confronted Vince about it in his office, then physically assaulted him. Now, Nailz would later accuse Vince of sexually harassing him or trying to sexually harass him, which prompted the retaliation. We don't know if that's the case or not, but either way, that was the end of Nailz' run in the company. He would make a go of it in WCW, but only for a short time before the Federation told him not to use the convict gimmick. Lord Alfred Hayes backstage doing some investigative work, trying to find out where Mr. Perfect is. He goes to Macho Man's dressing room, but the door is locked. Elsewhere, Mean Gene is with sensational Sherry, who's been caught in between 2 gorgeous beefcakes. She's already managing Shawn Michaels, who gets into the business of some sexy model by the name of Rick Martel. Martel starts to go after Sherry, makes a wink, she winks back. Oh, what is a girl to do? She even recommended the stipulation for this matchup be neither man will be allowed to hit each other in the face because they're just both so gorgeous. Sherry says she will stand by her man, but she leaves it at that, kind of ambiguous. But my whole thing is, why do we have 2 concurrent, what side is the manager going to be on storylines right now with Mr. Perfect and sensational Sherry? Does Perfect also want to boink Savage and Warrior? We go to that match now. No hits to the face allowed as Shawn Michaels takes on Rick the Model Martel. Rare heel versus heel match on pay-per-view. Martel comes out wearing his finest tennis attire, but Vince McMahon tells us Wimbledon took place a couple of months ago already. Some good crisp wrestling here. Martel goes for a dive early on, but lands face first on the canvas. So that doesn't really count as a hit to the face because he did it to himself. Martel dumps Shawn out of the ring. Martel takes Sherry by the hand, gives her a hug, and Sherry like. Shawn and Rick are back in the ring. We get a lot of exposed butts, or bums, as they say in England. The crowd goes wild. More pinfall attempts, but at this point, both guys are just frustrated and start slapping each other in the face. Slapping's not illegal because it's an open palm. That's a very important distinction. Sherry gets on the apron and yells at them both to stop. Finally, she faints on the apron. Both men stop fighting. Sherry flops onto the floor. Shawn tries to revive her, or at least mimes that he's thinking about it. Then Martel intervenes. Shawn finally decks Martel in the face. Martel fights back. They fight their way up the ramp. Finally get a double count out. No one's disqualified for these hits to the face at this point. Sherry shows she may not have fainted for real. Checks on the men fighting over her. Shawn makes his way back to pick up Sherry out of the arena. Martel decks Shawn, who then drops Sherry and right on her face. Martel grabs her. Shawn decks Martel. Sherry eats shit again. Oh my God. Martel comes back with a bucket of water. He splashes Sherry, who then wakes up. HBK and Martel finally leave, and Sherry is all alone. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. As a match, it's not that impressive, but the whole story they're telling in this segment is so highly entertaining, it's really impossible for me to ignore. It's so funny because the whole idea of Sherry is trying to make these 2 guys fight over her and for her affections, and she can't choose which, gorgeous hunk she wants to be with and everything. And then she fakes the fainting and it completely backfires on her. She's taking some hard falls on the ramp, so it shows you how tough she is. And the whole thing is she's supposed to be faking it the whole time. She's supposed to be pretending to be passed out. So this is all part of her plan, and she's just going along with it. She's a tough woman, and this is a hilarious match. I loved it. The Nasty Boys backstage have a good guffaw over Sherry's misfortunes. They turn their focus to the champions, the Natural Disasters. Their jowls tremble over the fact they don't have a title shot. When will they get that title shot, Jimmy? Jimmy eventually promises his guys they're going to get that title shot. Speaking of the champs, the Natural Disasters defend against the Beverly brothers. Earthquake and Typhoon, or Quake and Foon, they turned babyface earlier this year when Jimmy Hart went behind their backs to give a title shot to Money Inc. instead of them. So they fired Jimmy Hart, turned babyface. They beat Money Inc. in July for the belts. This is their first title defense. Bo and Blake, the brothers Beverly, as the Genius announces them, two spoiled rich kids looking for championship gold. I know that fashion was much different in '92 than it is now, so maybe it's my modern sensibilities taking effect here, but who in their right mind actually believes this is how like rich people dress, like for athletic competition? The tights are cool, I'm not going to mess with the tights, but who thought those robes were a good idea? The disasters begin with some flattening maneuvers on the Beverlys. Blake tries to slam Typhoon, almost pulls it off, but the big man just too big. They set up a double team move which would undoubtedly hurt both Blake and Typhoon, but instead Quake just hurts Typhoon. That's smart. The Bevs work over Foon. Heenan on commentary saying you could take Typhoon to a park and charge kids to ride him like a mechanical horse. I'm kind of surprised the Federation never tried to break into the arcade game market with those kind of mechanical rides. There's giant wrestlers you can ride like a horse. We get the missed tag with the baby faces again. Maybe the opening tag match shouldn't have used all the same tricks. Blake standing on the bottom rope atop Typhoon's neck. Foon with a desperation double line and everyone is down. Typhoon's got Blake up. Bo drop kicks them both down. We get a near fall. Bo pulls Earthquake off the apron as Genius hands Blake the metal scroll. With the referee distracted, Blake decks Foon, but Quake makes a save. Finally, the hot tag to Quake, who's all over Bo. Blake comes in, but Quake checks them both. Earthquake with a power slam, the big sit, the win. The crowd goes nuts. The Genius is tossed into the ring and is dumped out. This one gets 2 stars out of 5 for me. I would have enjoyed this match a whole lot more if we didn't see so many of the familiar tag team traits in the opener as well as this match. But I will say at least this one didn't have a ventriloquist doll at ringside. Backstage with the Bushwhackers, Mean Gene cracks a joke about a dentist trying to sell Luke a London Bridge, but they then lie about how they're going to be at Buckingham Palace as honored guests where they'll eat royal sardines on royal china. Elsewhere, Lord Alfred Hayes is outside Warriors dressing room, and holy hell, whose third great art project is that on the door? Was that an art contest? The kid placed third or something? What's that abomination up there? Hayes says he's going to violate his own code of ethics and barge into the locker room, but he gets pushed out. How wooed, he says. Up next, the Repo Man versus Crush. Former Demolition teammates, new gimmicks. Repo Man has threatened to repossess Crush's career. Repo with the jump early on, but it does not phase Crush. There's a big old press slam. Crush hits a clothesline on Repo on the floor. Some back and forth in the ring. Crush the top rope knee drop, but gets none of it. Crush is tough and withstands Repo's attacks. Reap with another eye poke begins to take over. He goes for a top rope dive, but Crush catches him with the power slam. The cranium crush. Crush wins. I give it 1 star out of 5. It was a short and sweet match, maybe under 5 minutes long, to get Crush over as a powerhouse, and that was about it. Not much to say about it.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Where is it? O-U-T. Landish. Now listen, the TV champ is new to this whole internet thing, but he knows when surfing the World Wide Web, you gotta have protection. Outlandish. That's why Outlandish Ziggy Dice uses Surfshark.
Surfshark VPN is the virtual private network that's more than just ad blockers and protection from hackers. Surfshark is a specially designed application that allows you to access content from all over the world, keeps your gaming safe from doxers, and more to max your online experience. If you're not convinced, Surfshark is backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. Start your program to online freedom now. Click the link in the description to get Surfshark for 85% off, plus an extra 3 months for free.
You've gotta want it! Wait, what do you mean we can't say that? Cut!
It's time for the WWF Championship match as the Macho Man Randy Savage defends against the Ultimate Warrior, the first of 2 babyface versus babyface title matches on the evening. Of course, these 2 men do have a history. It was 1 year ago, WrestleMania 7, the Warrior beat Savage in his retirement match, which, boy, that didn't last too long, did it? The Warrior is named the #1 contender for the championship, which makes Flair, the former champ, very upset. And the whole build for this is just all pot stirring by Flair and Mr. Perfect from the get-go. On an episode of Superstars, Flair confronts the Warrior and tells him, hey, Randy Savage is in negotiations with Perfect as a manager for the match, tells Warrior to enter a bidding war. Neither man trusts the other. Warrior and Savage, I should say, they don't trust each other. Each man accuses the other of conspiring with Flair and Perfect, and they all have like their own evidence to support their theories, but neither man is denying that they are working with Flair and Perfect, which is very interesting. A week before the show, the champion and the challenger are forced to team up against the Nasty Boys, and in that match, Savage and Warrior have a miscommunication, making things even more tense between them. By the way, what the hell is with this phase in Warrior's career where he's wearing singlets that look like nothing? He's wearing like flesh-colored singlets to show he's still ripped and still wearing tights. Just wear the trunks. Why are you're still in tremendous shape, Warrior. What are you covering up at this point? Maybe he wants to save money on face paint by not putting it on his body, so he'll put it on the singlet instead. Maybe he's covering up some regrettable tattoo he's going to get removed later. It's a pretty cool way to make the face versus face angle work here. You know, comparing the build for this one versus, say, 1998, where it's a babyface Steve Austin versus a face at best, tweener at worst Undertaker. I think what makes 92 better in a lot of respects is the mystery of, like, is either man going to turn heel? Whereas with Austin, like, you knew where he stood. It was Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon, Undertaker, Kane, Paul Bearer, Mankind. There was no question Austin was going to be, challenging. It was fighting all those guys. The story with that match was, is Undertaker going to get help from his brother Kane? Are they in cahoots? And we find out that they are in cahoots, but it doesn't play into the finish like at all, which is very interesting. Meanwhile, with 92, with Savage and Warrior, the whole build is like which one of these guys is going to turn to the dark side. They've pretty much all but guaranteed it's going to happen, but will it though? We're about to find out. Both men make their entrance, Warrior wearing a singlet that no doubt inspired Giant Gonzalez's look later on in the year. Neither man emerges with Mr. Perfect, so what does this mean? There's some locking of the horns, some pushing and shoving. Macho goes up top, but Warrior cuts him off, a big atomic drop. Warrior with a lot of big punches to Savage. Randy grabs the tights once, doesn't go well. Let's try it again. Warrior goes into the buckle. Savage on the offensive, outside the ring, inside the ring. Bombs away, but Warrior just gets more fired up. Savage hits him again. There's a third attempt. Warrior catches him into a backbreaker. Many whips into the turnbuckles. Savage with a surprise roll-up, but Warrior's no King Corbin. That does not put him away. Savage puts the neckbreaker on, but appears to hurt his own back in the process. It's hard to carry Warrior so much. Warrior takes over with a big suplex. He goes running, but hurls himself out of the ring. Randy with a top rope axe handle to the outside. Warrior driven into the post. Here come Flair and Perfect. What are those troublemakers doing here? Warrior goes to the splash, but Savage puts the knees up. A double down in the ring. Savage gets up and is tripped by Perfect. So now we know who sold it to Mr. Perfect. Or do we? Ref is taken out. Warrior up top hits the axe handle of his own. Referee's not in position in time, which allows Savage to kick out at 2. Warrior's mad. Savage hits from behind. The referee's out again. Randy with a big pile driver to the Warrior. As Savage goes to help the referee, Perfect helps Warrior up, but he sets him up for a Ric Flair punch. So it was Savage who paid Perfect. The perfect crime. Savage hits the elbow. There's a slow count. Warrior kicks out. U-dubs. Warrior's up. There's the lines. The tackle, he goes for the splash. Perfect misses a trip, but that's a setup for a Ric Flair chair shot. Ooh, so sneaky. Savage has figured it all out, and instead of going for the cover, he confronts Perfect. Randy teases the elbow again, but instead he dives to the outside toward Flair, but he kind of hits him in the leg with the chair. Savage is counted out. Boo! Flair and Perfect attack Savage's knee, but Warrior prevents more damage from happening, grabs the chair, chasing the baddies away. He gets back in the ring where Savage is still selling the leg. Warrior is announced the winner. He gets a pop. Savage is still the champ. He also gets a pop. Warrior grabs the title belt. There's some tension, and he helps Savage celebrate. Might have been a little too long to play to the Warrior's strengths, but I think he still looked pretty good throughout most of the match. No WrestleMania 7 encounter, but I think it's still good just the same. The countout finish is disappointing. I think, we were all kind of sold on this idea for weeks and weeks of, who's going to sell out? Where's Mr. Perfect going to go? And it's kind of nice in a way, but also kind of disappointing that it ends in no one sells out. The heels just beat up both guys. Backstage, Mean Gene wants to know what the hell happened out there, guys. Perfect and Flair admit that they had a plan A for one of the guys to buy their services, but that didn't pan out. Plan B seems to to be the two of them working together to beat up Savage and Warrior. Flair's pissed off, saying the title shot should have been his to begin with. He's coming for the belt either way. You know, calling it Plan B is pretty apropos, considering the Plan A for how this match was supposed to go did not go as planned. According to legend, the Warrior was supposed to turn heel on this night, joining up with Mr. Perfect, but behind the scenes, Warrior flat out refused to turn heel, wanted no part of that, so they were left with doing this kind of wishy-washy non-finish as a result of that. And these creative differences would eventually kind of lead, or at least contribute, to the Warrior flat out quitting the company later in the year, leaving them high and dry before Survivor Series. The whole build was obviously going to be Warrior and Savage versus Flair and Perfect, but they had to do some shuffling around for that one. If I ever get to Survivor Series 92, I will explain all that. Story for another time, though. I will say Flair does get the belt from Savage not too long after SummerSlam, like at the turn of the month in September. He will become a two-time champion. As for what happens with that belt, well, I'll tell you in a little bit. Up next, The Undertaker takes on Kamala, who Dr. Harvey Whippleman bills as being from the dark continent of Africa, as he's accompanied by Kim Chi, a Brooklyn brawler in a mask. Kamala's been on a bit of a roll lately, a little wild, a little unpredictable because he's from the jungles and everything. Meanwhile, Paul Bearers told his viewers that his British mortician friends had prepared 3 caskets for tonight. Taker rolls up standing in the back of a hearse on his way to the ring. Good, he would have taken forever to get to the ring otherwise. Taker begins with some big soup bones, Cole, hits the current school, goes for it again, but Harvey distracts and Taker tumbles. Taker's knocked out of the ring. He gets his hands on the managers, but Kamala strikes. Kamala slams Taker into the steps. My God, that was swift. Back in the ring, Taker hits a choke slam and a lariat, goes the tombstone, but Kim Chi hits Taker with his pith helmet. The match ends in a disqualification, and Kamala attacks. A big second rope splash after the bell rings, then one from the top rope. The baddies go to leave, but Taker with the sit-up. Great look of shock by Kamala as Taker stalks him up the ramp. I give it a half star out of 5. It's not a very long match, not a very interesting match, but I did like kind of the post-match scrum afterward with Taker sitting up and Kamala looking very scared and everything. These guys would have the feud would continue on a Survivor Series. They'd wrestle in a coffin match there, so this was more of kind of like a way to keep the angle going, protect both guys for that inevitable conflict. Backstage, the British Bulldog's being interviewed, where he says he hopes the family conflict will die down after this match, and it's not pressure to perform in front of 80,000 people, it's a dream. Elsewhere, Bret Hart's being interviewed, and he says Bulldog is responsible for all the family tension for asking for the title match. He says he's helped Bulldog's career more than anyone else and that he has no gratitude. Bulldog's dream of winning the championship will become a nightmare. Well, here we go, a main event fit for SummerSlam in Wembley Stadium. Bret Hart defends the Intercontinental Championship against the hometown hero, the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. This is the first time in history the Intercontinental Championship has been defended by itself, meaning no unification matches, in the main event of a pay-per-view. The last time that happened was in 2018 with Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler. Bret Hart has sort of taken credit for this match taking place because he pitched to Vince 2 ideas, where if the show is going to stay in Landover, Maryland, then he should defend the title against Shawn Michaels in a ladder match, which in an alternate timeline means we could have had the first ladder match a couple of years before we ended up getting it at WrestleMania 10. However, with the show moving to London, Bret pitched to Vince, what if I drop the title to the British Bulldog and it'll be a great hometown pop? And so that's basically how this match happens. By the way, Bret, I should say, pitched the idea to Vince while the Bulldog was still serving a suspension for popping for steroids some time ago. And the entire build for this matchup has been family feud. Literally, every promo and segment and mention of this angle and this match has been all about the fact that Bret and Davey Boy are brother-in-laws. Bulldog is married to Bret's sister, Diana, who plays a big role in the build for this as well. And so the families are split apart. In the weeks leading up to this, you see interviews from, Stu and Helen Hart, and from Bruce Hart, and from Diana Hart Smith, and all these different relatives and everything about how much this has just ripped everyone apart. Everyone's taking sides. And this is the era where, for promos, you stood in front of the same wall, you cut like a bunch of promos back to back to back, and they all sounded very similar, a lot of the same ingredients, but the words were just arranged kind of differently. So if you're watching TV, all these promos basically tell you the same thing. Cool little footnote here in the build of this matchup too, because Vince McMahon says at one point on commentary on TV, this could be the most scientific wrestling match we have ever seen. Those are his exact words. It's a bit of a bold prediction, but if you know Vince McMahon, you've been watching up until this year, he's always been about that. Another fun fact, in the weeks leading up to this matchup, Bret could not get a hold of Bulldog for anything, and it turns out he couldn't get a hold of Bulldog because he was busy with Jim the Anvil Neidhart smoking crack for weeks before he fled to England. So let's see how that plays out in the match. Roddy Piper on the bagpipes. Sean Mooney interviews Diana Hart Smith at ringside. She sounds genuinely worried for the fate of her family, but it comes off more like she's somewhat out of it.
I regret that I may have been an obstacle in their path, but I am worried about what they're going to do to each other.
Bulldog comes out first, accompanied by UK boxing champion Lennox Lewis waving the flag. Bulldog with the strength early on, knocking Bret off his feet. Bret with some very pretty headlock takeovers, and it may have been here that British Bulldog famously admitted to Bret he'd forgotten everything they had planned out as he was still coming down off the crack binge. For more on that, we go to an excerpt from Bret Hart's autobiography as read by Kevin Mann from the Attitude Era podcast. Take it away, cowboy.
At first, Davey outmaneuvered me with simple and realistic wrestling. But after only a few minutes, he was breathing hard. "Bret, I'm fooked," Davey panted as I had him clamped in a side headlock. "I can't remember anything." "Davey, just listen to me. I'll carry you." Joey shot me a worried look. This would be the test of my career.
Well, saying that he carried Davey and made him look good is a pretty big understatement. Bulldog rolls out of the arm wrench, gets one of his own. Bret takes over with a knee to the gut. Both men are treated as baby faces here. And, historically, Bret was always super over in Europe when he was in his prime. So the fans are pretty respectful to both guys here in this matchup. They do boo Bret a little bit more just by association of it being the Bulldog in London and everything. Only a few times in the match does Bret do something really underhanded or dirty here. And then the fans kind of lay into him. But for the most part, they cheer both guys pretty evenly. Bret with the Bulldog on the Bulldog, goes up top but gets bealed off. Bulldog tries it himself but misses it. Bret using Bulldog's own momentum against him and Davey Boy flies out of the ring. Bret then flings himself over the top rope. It's a damn slingshot sling blade in 1992. Bulldog fights back, picks Bret up for a press slam, but there's a bit too much momentum, an awkward fall onto the ropes, which is a callback spot to the old Hart Foundation Bulldogs matches. Bulldog with his stalling vertical suplex to a 2 count. He hits the running power slam, but Bret somehow kicks out of that. A German suplex with the bridge by Bret, and there's a kick out. The crowd is just going nuts at this point. A superplex and a kick out. We get a big double down, and then Bret gets Bulldog in the sharpshooter in a very creative lying down position. Very neat. Bret in his book admits that he actually practiced that move. It kind of came to him in an inspiration at 3 a.m. and he told his wife Julie to wake up, get on the floor so he can practice the move. That's love right there. Bulldog blocks it and folds him up. 3 count and Bulldog wins. Then at the end of the match, there's this thing where Bret talks about adding a little bit more detail, a little more drama to their story and everything. Doesn't quite go the way that Bret wants it to because Bulldog is oblivious to the handshake that Bret Hart is trying to telegraph.
I'm thinking, come on, Davey, look at me, we'll make 'em all cry. But Davey never caught on. Instead, he was trying to milk the crowd. I was thinking, the drama's with me, not them, for fuck's sake. Please look at me, Davey. After too many attempts, I gave up. I just walked over and shook his hand. He'd completely missed one of the tiny moments that can make it all the more real. But what could I do? The torch had been passed. Some SummerSlam.
I give this one 5 stars out of 5. This is a beautiful match, whether it be for the Intercontinental title or not. Easily one of the best matches I've ever seen, and it's made so much more impressive when you realize the backstory of this and realize that Bulldog was fucked up, or either coming down from being fucked up, the whole time of this matchup. Whatever deficiencies or mistakes Bret Hart points out in his book about the matchup, or the fact that he had to carry Bulldog, you really couldn't tell, because everything they do to kind of cover up for it and work around it is just so fantastic and damn near flawless. This is undoubtedly the Bulldog's biggest career highlight, but sadly this epic moment would be fleeting. He would go on to lose the title in October to Shawn Michaels, who was originally set to win the belt anyway at SummerSlam had the show happen in America. Then Bulldog would be gone from the company for 2 years. Meanwhile, Bret Hart, the man who lost the main event here, would beat Ric Flair for his first world championship at a house show in Canada about a month and a half after Flair had won it. And the rest, as they say, is history. My grade for SummerSlam 1992 is a B. I think many fans write this show off as being a one-match show, and obviously Bret and Bulldog is the biggest match on this show. But I think that, you can give some credit to Savage and Warrior as well for having a great world title match, even if the finish kind of doesn't really pan out very well. And then I think, again, the comedy match, the heel versus heel comedy match of Michaels and Martel is one of the straight-up biggest highlights for me on this show. It's so fun to watch. Not only that, it's everything else about this show that makes it feel bigger. It's the new setting. It's the fantastic crowd that really elevates things here. And when you look back at this, it's not just, oh, it's a show in England, or oh, it's just Bret Hart and Bulldog. There's a lot of other things about this show that make it really fun to watch. Well, Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of SummerSlam 92. If you want to play a role in determining which shows I look at, be they good, bad, or somewhere in between, go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret, become a $10 backer or above, and you'll have the chance to nominate classic shows for me to review. Next time on this segment, I'll be taking a little bit of a break from the WWF stuff, obviously, not doing the SummerSlam things. I'm going back to WCW for one of the biggest and best received shows they've ever did, Spring Stampede 1994. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
Put over Davey Boy Smith again? I just assumed blow my brains out.